One of the most important decisions that you can make after you've made the decision to purchase a handgun is, which handgun should I purchase? Today on the RA Factor, we're going to go into criteria for selecting a handgun for yourself or for a loved one. Selection of a handgun can be one of the most important decisions that you're going to make. How do you decide which handgun is right for you? Here at Hyatt, we have a staff made up mainly of NRA instructors. So the first question that our staff will ask you is, what do you plan to do with the gun? They're not prying into your business, but some guns are not suitable for some sporting purposes. You wouldn't purchase a target pistol with a heavy barrel to use for a lady's concealed carry. Just like you wouldn't take a small concealed carry pistol and think that you're going to get a whole lot of satisfactory range time with something this small. So once you determine what criteria that you're going to use it for, then that lowers down the number of handguns that you should consider. First, let's talk about concealed carry. It should come as no surprise to anyone that the number of handguns being bought today specifically for concealed carry is higher than it has ever been at any time. Concealed carry is the largest growing facet of the shooting sports. And in that, the number of women applying first time for concealed carry permits and that are taking NRA training is now beyond the scope of what you would have even thought about 20 years ago. The second question after determination of purpose is, how much experience have you had? A person that shot for a pistol team in college or in the military may not require the same type of firearm as a complete novice who has never fired a gun before. So you want to make sure that the gun professional that you're dealing with understands what level of training or level of shooting experience that you have. Because at that point, they will begin to consider how complicated the gun is to use. For concealed carry, my personal choice, if you're not a very experienced shooter, is going to be a small frame Smith & Wesson Taurus Charter Arms revolver. The small frame revolver will take a .38 caliber round, which for years and years was used by most police departments, and it gives you 5 rounds. I like to say that the miniature revolver is the original point and click interface. You pick up the revolver, you aim at your target, and you squeeze the trigger. Each and every time that you squeeze the trigger, you're going to get a fresh cylinder with a fresh round. So if you do have a malfunction with one round, hit the trigger again, and you're liable to get a good round unless there's something mechanically wrong with the gun. New pocket automatics, such as this Taurus, they have a low magazine capacity, but chamber around, and then this thing is ready to go with less mechanical movement as soon as you pull the trigger. Going up a bit, this Bursa has an external safety and a decocker, which the Taurus does not have. A lot of the smaller compact and subcompact pistols are not going to have safeties on them. This Bursa has 3. The other thing that you want to look at besides activity and experience is the physical condition of the person that's buying the gun. You'd never want to sell a .38 Special to someone who has rheumatoid arthritis in their hands. You don't want to sell an automatic to someone that's not physically capable of pulling the slide back. You don't want to stand there and have the gun professional show you, well, you can lean this against the desk and push the slide down. Some rear sights are designed to do that. Law enforcement officers are taught to do that, but that's not what you should have to do for the gun you select for your self-defense or concealed carry gun. You should be able to actually pull the slide back and load that gun unassisted. If you cannot do that, then that's probably not the gun for you. Now, on the small revolvers, we've got a spurred hammer or an internal hammer. Which one's right? Well, it depends on the application. A lady carrying a gun in a purse may not want to have a spurred hammer because it can get hung up on the lining of the purse or the lining of a pocket. A person that has arthritis in their hand may not want this pistol that you have to use a double action trigger only, because they may not have the strength in their hand to activate this gun, in which case now they need to have the hammer spur so that they drop the trigger weight. Someone that comes up and says, well, I'm going to use this gun for concealed carry, but I want to target practice with it too. These small 380s are not conducive to a lot of target practice. But you also don't want to have somebody that is going to use the gun for concealed carry get into a Glock 17. The gun's a little bit too big. But its baby brother, the Glock 26, isn't real good for range practice. So what that would tell you, let's go in the center. Let's get the Glock 19. The Glock 19 loses 2 rounds from the 17. It's an inch shorter, but it's not a subcompact that's uncomfortable to fire. The Glock 19 answers all of the criteria for I want to target practice and use the same gun for concealed carry. A lot of times when people look at revolvers, the only thing that they have to go on is what they've seen in the movies or what someone has told them. And the first thing that they'll want to look at is a large frame automatic. This revolver happens to be a 686 Smith & Wesson in .357 Magnum. This pistol will also fire .38 special ammunition, but it's heavy. So if you have an older customer that's having problems with bone structure, or it looks like they can't control the weight, this might not be the handgun for them. It would be at that point that you may want to look at one of the smaller 38s and not the 4-inch barreled Smith. 22 caliber handguns are used for many purposes. Everything from small game hunting and target practice to some smaller statured or people that have hand problems will use a 22 for self-defense. Some folks say that's just not enough oomph for a self-defense situation, and I would say in 90% of the situations that you're going to encounter, this is incorrect. A 22 long rifle can be just as devastating on a close range shot as a .44 Magnum if it's a well-placed shot. But you wouldn't want to carry this Ruger target pistol as your concealed carry gun. 1, it's too heavy, and 2, it's too big. But the Taurus flip barrel would not be suitable for range practice. Safeties. Do I want a safety or do I not? That depends on several factors. One of which, do you have children at home? Do you have children that come to visit? Or do you just have the idiot cousin that crashes on the couch every once in a while? The thing to look at with safeties is it's one more step you have to go through to bring that gun into use should you actually need it. On single action automatics such as this 1911 government model, it has a grip safety that is engaged just by holding the gun properly, but it also has a thumb safety. The thumb safety can only be engaged if the hammer is back, and there's no safe way to decock a model 1911 once you have a round in the chamber. So this is the preferred method for carrying a 1911 loaded. A lot of people are not real comfortable with this. They want something that is not carrying with the hammer back. The Bursa addresses this problem in that it is a double action automatic. It also has a magazine drop safety. That's why when the magazine is out, it will not fire and the hammer won't drop. Now, I'm going to hit this control and decock this pistol. Now there's a round in the chamber, it's on safe, and the hammer's forward. Should you need this gun, you can merely flip the safety off and then squeeze the trigger. That will cause the round to discharge because on a double action, each squeeze of the trigger controls two functions. Beginning in the middle 1980s, several gun companies started looking at using high-impact space-age polymers and different types of coatings. The most famous of these guns is the Glock. It's from the country of Austria, and it's been out since around 1986. The Glock has no external safeties, but it has what's called a safe action trigger. Inside of the slide, there's a positive firing pin block that has to be moved out of the way by the action of the trigger itself. You can load a Glock up and throw it against a concrete wall, and if that gun is functioning properly, it will not go off. We torture tested Glocks to see if we could make them not shoot. Just understand that after about 6 months of trying to break one of them, the only thing we could do to make this gun not shoot was we ran over it with a bulldozer. The problem people have with the Glock, though, is the Glock doesn't have an external safety. That's something that you address by going to a gun like the Smith & Wesson M&P. The M&P is the same basic concept as the Glock, but it has a thumb safety. And in accordance with the Federal Youth Handgun Safety Act, all handguns sold in the United States now are required to come with a lock of some type. New manufactured guns are required to come from the factory with locks. Used guns that you pick up here at Hyatt's, we will provide you with a gun lock. Now, if you should decide that you'd like to lock up all of your handguns that you previously have acquired, we can either sell you a safe to put them in, or you can go to the sheriff's department in your local town and you can pick up all the locks you want under the program called Operation Child Safe. I recommend that you get gun locks and that you use them. Now, some companies have decided that they're going to try and beat that game, and they're going to give you something that no one else has, and that's an internal lock. Smith & Wesson, Taurus, Bersa, HK, and Springfield all have models that have built-in internal locking systems that will prevent that gun from firing in every case if the lock is working properly. Once again, I'm going to put the magazine in the Bersa because it is a mag drop safety gun, but I'm going to demonstrate now how to lock this Bersa. The small key comes with it. Other keys are available. You simply put the key in and rotate until you hear a click. This gun is now locked up. Taking the safety off, I cannot get the trigger to move the hammer or the action because there is a lock here preventing any movement on this action. It can be loaded, decocked, and locked at the same time. Taurus does something very similar. On all of their guns, automatics and revolvers, you'll see this little part here. I take the Taurus key, I turn it half a turn clockwise, and now the gun is locked up. There are about 5 things that you really, really need. There are a whole lot of things that are nice to have, but between 5 and 10 need to have items with any handgun purchase. The first one, of course, is ammunition. Now, a handgun requires somewhere between 100 and 200 rounds to break it in. You also want to do that with a used firearm if you buy it, because you don't know how much the person before you shot it, or you don't know how they fired it. When I say how they fired it, how hot did they get the gun while they were trying to break it in? Did they clean it properly? You just don't know. So you want to fire between 100 and 200 rounds with every handgun that you purchase. If you're going to have a problem with that gun that you need to deal with the warranty, that's when you're going to find out. The time to find out that there's a problem with the handgun isn't at 2:30 in the morning facing an armed assailant. The next thing you want to consider is cleaning kit. No matter which one of these firearms you select, it's not going to work well if it's not kept clean. Handguns, just like any other firearm or any other fine piece of equipment, also have some collector value. A handgun is worth how much a collector will pay for it. Take, for example, the Smith & Wesson 357. This gun is only going to appreciate in value, which means it's going to go up in value. But if you handle it improperly, store it improperly, and never take the time to clean it properly, then this gun will lose money. Just like you wouldn't take your jewelry out and leave it lay on the porch, don't take this pistol out, shoot it all day in the rain, then take it home and toss it in the sock drawer. That will cause an expensive handgun to be not even worth the material that it's made out of. Cleaning solvents and oils. Please buy something nice and don't use anything from the auto parts store. Just because your cousin Ernie said that he used brake cleaner on his guns when he was in the Army doesn't mean that you should do that. Most automotive chemicals are way too harsh for handguns, especially if they have rubber grips, composite material in the handles. Some of those chemicals will break the composites and the polymers down and will actually degrade the ability of that gun to function. North Carolina has in its general statutes, and the federal government has in its laws, legislation regarding the storage of handguns where there are children around. The Federal Youth Handgun Safety Act notice puts a pecuniary liability on a gun owner if you store your handgun in such a manner that a child gets it and takes it to school or anywhere else, and that child hurts himself or someone else. You as the gun owner can be found liable when all you did was take your gun, put it in your sock drawer, and then your child took that gun, put it in a book bag, and took it to school. We offer here the small mini vaults that you can put that gun in, and it opens with a set combination. I also recommend that you get a product called snap caps. Snap caps are dummy rounds that you can use to practice loading and unloading, and that will cushion the firing pin and the hammer when you're doing dry fire practice. Snap caps are milled aluminum with a polymer primer pocket. That polymer primer pocket protects your gun, and the snap cap gives you the ability to learn to load and unload quickly and efficiently, especially in the dark. Remember, most of the time that you use your gun for self-defense, it's going to be in the hours of darkness. How are you going to carry this gun? If you're a concealed carry holder, you're going to want some type of a holster that will conceal that gun on your person. A lot of female shooters are liking the new purses coming from GTM or from Galco that have built-in holsters. You can put a .38 Special revolver in the side of a Galco purse and walk around doing all of your shopping, and no one will ever know that that gun is there. That's how we do it here at Hyatt's, and I recommend that if the shop that you're patronizing is not doing that, that you switch to us. With the information that we've just given you today, I know that you're going to make a fantastic handgun selection. Here at Hyatt's, we are ready and willing to help you at any time. Get a hold of us, we'll answer your questions, put that gun in your hand, and make sure that it's the right fit for you. See you next time.